Welcome to episode 25. Here we will learn about the reduce method. The array reduce method is a powerful method that is used to narrow down all the elements of the array into a single value. The simplest explanation is, imagine two things, a callback function and a variable. Now, the callback function is used to calculate something, right? Imagine that calculated value is returned from that function, and that returned value will be used to update the new value of the variable on each iteration. It might sound confusing, so let's look at some code. The simplest example we can do is to add all elements of an array of numbers. So here on the screen, you'll see an array of numbers. So I can do array1 dot reduce. Now this takes a callback function and a starting value, or the initial value. I'll call this as 0. The callback function itself can take up to 4 values. The first is the accumulator, second is the current value, third is the index, and fourth is the entire array. So what I can do is I can return the accumulated value, which starts with the initial value, and I can add the current value to it. Store the result in a constant. And log it to the console. When running the code, I get 15 because all the values summed up equals to 15. To iterate through this complicated looking function, we can omit these two values because we don't need them here. Okay, so in the first iteration, our accumulator is gonna start from 0. And the first value is going to be 1. So in the first iteration, 0 plus 1 will return 1. Now this return value will be the second accumulated value. So 1, which is accumulator, plus the current value, 2, equals to 3. 3 will be returned and will be the next accumulator. Now, accumulator 3 plus the current value 3 will be 6, which will be returned. The next iteration, value 6 will be accumulator, and the current value will be 4, which will be 10 returned, and that returned value will be the next accumulator, and the current value, which is 5, which will be 15. Now, because this is the end of the array, 15 will be returned and stored in the result, which is what we see here. If you don't pass in the initial value to the callback, the initial value will default to the first value of the array and the iteration will be skipped. So if I do remove the initial value, then 1 will be the initial value and the first iteration will be skipped. The reduce method also works for an array of objects. In another example, I can take an array of objects. So let's count the number of times the specific property appears in an object. In this example, I can calculate if how many times each age has been repeated in the array. So I could take the callback function, and the initial value I could just put in as an empty object. I will take the accumulator and the value, and here first I can extract the age, which will be the current value each of the object dot age. Then I can check accumulator dot age equals to I can check if accumulator.age is present. If not, I will initialize at 0. In the end, I will just add 1 to it. What this will do is it will check the accumulator, and if it has a property of age, then it will simply add 1 to it, and if it's not there, it will assign 0 to it and then add 1 to it. In the end, I can just return the accumulator. We are going through this array of objects. We are checking the age of each object, and we are creating a hash map of the age. So each time a particular age is encountered, that counter will be increased by 1. So in this reduce function, we have an accumulator and a value. So we are defining a constant on each iteration, age, which comes from the current value, each value. And in our accumulator, which will accumulate in each iteration, we are checking if this current age property is present. If it is not present, we will assign it to 0 and then add 1 to it. And if it is present, we will simply increment it by 1 and then return that accumulated value. I'm running this code. I see 25 is present 2 times, 30 is present 2 times, and 35 is present 1 time. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next episode.